Well, folks, looks like Nick De Vries might have to change his name to Nick De Boot. That was terrible, I'm sorry. Might we see a mid-season switcheroo with Nick De Vries being replaced by Daniel Ricciardo, and him, much like this shoe, being dropped? Come on, that's impossible. Nick De Vries getting less time in Formula 1 than good old Mazepin. And one to think about first of all is cash. Nick De Vries ain't bringing in any. Nick De Vries does not come with any sponsors. All of the big Dutch sponsors have gone to Max Verstappen. It kind of really shows in my mind there's really no room for two successful Dutch drivers in Formula 1. It's either Max Verstappen or no one else. And it really doesn't help Nick's case that he's not part of the Red Bull Junior program. The whole point of alphatauri and Toro Rosso was to help promote the Red Bull Junior program and give them the back door into Formula 1 and then joining the main team later on. Yes, I know that since 2020, alphatauri's now become a sister team of Red Bull, but let's just face it really, alphatauri is there for the Red Bull Juniors to hone their craft. They usually get 3 seasons, sometimes 2, but if they don't improve after that, then good luck to them. Quite a lot of the drivers on the grid are actually Red Bull Junior program refugees, Carlos Sainz being one of them, and not to mention Pierre Gasly. According to some journalists, Daniel Ricciardo has been spotted in Faenza. What for exactly has not actually been specified. It could be for a driver fitting, because they share a lot of the same equipment, Red Bull and alphatauri, in preparation for Daniel Ricciardo's tyre test at Silverstone and Monza driving the RB19. Surely they're completely different cars, right? Well, not so. Because of the relationship that alphatauri and Red Bull have, they share a lot of components, which is legal in Formula 1, such as the Honda power unit, the gearbox, the hydraulics, and the complete rear suspension of the car. Since Daniel is going to be driving the RB19, which again shares a lot of the components from the AT04, it kind of makes sense really for him to be dropped into the alphatauri, and he'll have had a really good understanding as to what the car is mostly about. Sure, there will be some differences between the cars, but the primary DNA of both of those vehicles will be completely identical, and Daniel will need less time to get to grips with it. The fact that Nick De Vries is not part of the Red Bull Junior program is really harming his cause. He kind of goes against the grain of what the team was all about. It's meant to promote young drivers from the Red Bull fold, and Nick De Vries ain't one of them. In the eyes of Helmut Marko, he is a tool. In 2023, there were no real suitable candidates to partner up with Yuki Tsunoda going forward. You can tell that Pierre Gasly really mucked things up for them. In my opinion, Nick De Vries should have really just stayed at Williams for 2023. He did a really good job with them, and also with Williams not really setting the world alight in terms of performance, he'd have had a really quiet year to get used to the car, and people probably would have brushed off him crashing into barriers and stuff like that, saying, oh yeah, well that Williams car is a little bit tricky. That's really understandable, because Logan Sargent's having that same thing happen to him. And of course, Williams might be missing out on some dollary dues from Logan Sargent being a main driver and all of the attention that comes with it, but he can easily be a reserve driver being wheeled out for pre-practice 1 at Miami to drum up some hype and support for Williams as an American-backed team. And not to mention Doralton Capital being an American-based outfit, of course. Nick De Vries made the wrong call, not to mention that car is a bit of a dog here. And shout out to Yuki Tsunoda, by the way. He is driving his guts out to make sure he stays in Formula 1, getting 11ths or 10ths consistently. One of the most consistent drivers this season. He really needs to stay in Formula 1. He's done enough. I think Yuki's seat is safe now, so I think he's good. He's fine. But who would be partnering with him though? It could easily be Ayumu Iwasa from Formula 2 or Liam Lawson from Super Formula, depending if they get the super license points, of course. But the whole point of Daniel coming in mid-season, why? Daniel Ricciardo coming into alphatauri mid-season, what would that accomplish? Well, a lot of things. With the cars being somewhat similar, Daniel can actually get back onto the grid and keep abreast with what's going on in Formula 1. He'll have had a really good 6-month break, be away from the Formula 1 circus. And even though he wanted at least 1 season away from it, 6 months is still pretty good. Daniel will be coming back into Formula 1 stronger than ever, then potentially replacing Checo in 2025. But I don't really think that should happen because Checo is doing a really good job here and he's really checking in on what's going on with Max Verstappen. But again, all of this is based off quite a lot of speculation here. Nowadays, mid-season driver swaps don't really happen. It happened a lot back in the 1990s and 80s and 70s, in fact throughout most of Formula 1 history, but nowadays that really doesn't tend to happen. The likes of Mazepin and our GOAT Latifi do tend to actually see the season out, but Nick De Vries has a lot of factors going against him. He doesn't really bring any money to the team, he's not really set the world alight even though he's a Formula E champion and a Formula 2 champion, so already he's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders, and at the moment he's kind of being shown up by Yuki Tsunoda, who is historically known for being quite erratic and quite shouty and crashy. There's a lot more attention on Nick de Vries, and again, he's not part of the Red Bull Junior program, so he's really not got that safety net. Helmut Marko could easily drop him once they actually find a more convenient substitute, and that could easily be Daniel Ricciardo to make sure that he actually can keep an eye on what's going on with Red Bull. Red Bull are desperately keen to make use of Daniel Ricciardo as a promotional tool. And since the AlphaTauri team is really floundering right now with a really mucky car, just putting Daniel Ricciardo in an AlphaTauri uniform would send people into a tailspin of excitement. They would be so thrilled to see Daniel Ricciardo back on the grid. It would set the Formula One world alight. Everyone would be thrilled to see him driving in Las Vegas. Oh, think of the dollar. The positive fan feedback. Yes. Not the dollary dues. I feel bad for Nick. This was his dream. It was delayed for a very long time because of multiple factors. But he finally got to Formula One. He had his day in Monza. He was able to show what he could do. And now, in AlphaTauri, what he thought would be a really stable seat, he can't really show what he can do. He spent so long trying to get used to what the team is like. He's really popular with the mechanics. People like him in there. But how long will that last if he keeps crashing into things and making silly mistakes? He really needs a few clean weekends to show what he can do. Yes, it may be his rookie year, but he's not the age of a rookie. He's at least 6 years older than Oscar Piastri, who ultimately is the best rookie this season, and based on what McLaren's doing, that's really not saying much. All of these rumours, all of this speculation, I feel like it might have some legs here. I don't want this to happen. I want Daniel Ricciardo to be able to come in with Red Bull itself and show what he really can do and get some potential podiums and wins from the get-go. I don't want him just to be circling around, potentially at the back, or at least in the middle of the grid, just for the sake of publicity. I don't think so. So, Nick, hang in there, buddy. You got this. I'll see you folks in the comments.